Apologize for that. Sorry for that difficulty.
No, I think that was more on my end. How are you doing, Larry?
I'm very well, Councilmember. Great to have you, and so excited to be kicking things off here. I'm just waiting for our live stream to start, and it should be getting underway in seconds. So once it does, I will formally kick us off.
Yeah.
All right. All right, we appear to be live on YouTube, and so good evening to you watching us and to the Community Task Force on Policing. Welcome to this first meeting of the City of Elgin Community Task Force on Policing. My name is Dr. Larry Schooler, and I'm with the facilitation firm Kearns and West. I am joined tonight by our facilitation team, which includes Sarah Omar, Dr. Joe Horath, and Norma Ramos. We are all very privileged and honored to be given the opportunity to facilitate this body and to help you all develop consensus recommendations for the City of Elgin. To get us started, I wanted to first have the council members who are responsible for our existence to offer their greetings and welcome. So we'll begin with Council Member Tish Powell.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Good evening, everyone. Thanks to everyone who wanted to participate and signed up to participate in a leadership role in this task force. It's been a long time coming. I also want to thank my colleagues on the City Council for agreeing to move forward with this. I think it was much needed. After hearing from so many members of our community over the past few years regarding police-related issues, wanting to see something different and wanting to really get creative and think outside of the box on how we can reimagine policing in our community, on top of some of the very innovative things that our police department has already implemented. So shout out to our police department led by Chief Anna Lally. I do think that we're very innovative. There's always room for improvement. And what I really like to see is this group come together, really think outside the box, and but also respect each other's opinion and allow everyone to have a in the process. So with that being said, thank you. Still trying to get in on my computer versus on my phone, so bear with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Powell. Councilmember Shaw, please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you for your participation and your commitment to this task force. I'll keep my comments brief. You know, I see our role really as being listeners, being here just to provide any input that you're seeking from us, but really this is a citizens task force. And so, you know, I'll be here to kind of provide any guidance if needed from a guardrail perspective, and as well as also just taking communication back to the broader council as a whole. But glad to be here tonight, glad to participate, and looking to get to know you better as well. I think that's probably one of the things I'm most interested in. I've gotten to know a few of you over the years, but it'd be excited to get to know the rest of you and get to know all of you better as well. So thank you for coming tonight, and we'll excited to kick it off here.
Thank you to Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Powell, and we are also joined by Chief Anna Lally of the Police Department. Chief.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start out by just thanking all the task force members, along with Councilwoman Powell and Councilman Shaw, who have volunteered their time to be part of this initiative. I'm looking forward to working collectively with the members of the task force as they embark on their work. I hope that through this process, task force members are able to see the exceptional work that is done each day by members of the police department, and that you'll also experience that we are a department that embraces challenges and that we're always in a constant state of improvement. And it's also important to me as the chief that you get to know our officers and see past their uniform or some preconceived ideologies about our profession that some may hear. I've recently formed a committee in the department comprised of officers who will be available to you for any of your needs, for any information, along with me. And I hope that as we continue to work alongside each other, embracing different perspectives, that along the way we form lasting relationships that can only better our community and our department as a whole. I know many of you on the task force, and so I thank you for things that you have already done for the community and for the police department. And for those that I do not know, I look forward to working with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. It's great to have your collaboration on this important work. And now that I can see everybody, since I'm not sharing my screen, I'm going to wave and say more formal hello. Glad that everybody's here with us. It's exciting to finally be together. Let me return to our slide deck so that I can review our agenda for the evening. We are through the first part of our agenda, just a couple minutes behind. We're going to, in just a moment, review a couple of proposed discussion agreements for the task force. And these are discussion agreements that our facilitation team has found useful in the past, but I want to emphasize that discussion agreements should be your own. And so we'd like you to see what we've used in the past, but feel free to suggest your own, tell us to start over, just give us the discussion agreements that are going to work best for you to have the most productive and meaningful conversation in a brave space. After that, I'm going to pass things to my colleague, Sarah Omar, for an introduction activity. And then we're going to discuss some of what we heard you all tell us about your sort of underlying purpose and cause, if you will, for deciding to apply and then accept the invitation to serve on this task force. We're also going to talk about your overall scope of work and a little bit about your timeline and the possibility of deploying subcommittees. We intend to take a short break. 2 hours is a long time for any meeting, particularly to be on Zoom, and I suspect this isn't anyone's first Zoom today. So we're planning to take a very short break to allow folks to stand up, get something to drink or eat, respond to any texts or calls and so forth. Then we will have a priorities discussion around what topics to tackle in what order. And then we will talk a little bit about the appointment of a chair and co-chair for this task force. We may or may not get to make a final decision on that tonight, but we at least would like to discuss that as a group. Then we'll have some time for open discussion, and we plan to adjourn no later than 8 o'clock Central, and have that be a fairly constant rhythm. We know that everyone has other things to do besides this task force, so we appreciate you taking the time. Before I continue, are there any questions or comments about our agenda for the evening? All right. And I'll encourage folks to use their physical hand, use their Zoom hand. The Zoom hand is always nice because I can't always see everyone while I'm sharing a screen. So for those who haven't ever done that, it should be at the bottom of your screen. You should see a thing that says reactions, and you click on that and it gives you a chance to raise your hand. Councilmember Shaw rather is demonstrating the use of his thumb, which is very helpful and effective. It seems like being in the Chicago suburbs, it's more appropriate than ever to use thumb because, of course, Siskel and Ebert had 2 thumbs up. So it just seems like particularly appropriate and apt. The late Siskel and the late Ebert, as it were. Okay, so as I've got a hand, Mr. Zaldivar.
Will the task force be creating their future agendas?
Yes, sir. The way that we typically have facilitated these kinds of groups in the past is we work directly with a chair and a co-chair to develop the agendas for the task force. And those agendas, of course, come directly from the input given by the task force itself. So typically we'll ask the task force for input and then work as a team with the chair and co-chair to develop the agenda. So absolutely. And we're also open to other models besides chair, co-chair. We've sometimes worked with like a group of 5 or 6 sort of core task force members, kind of like an executive committee. But regardless, yes, you will be developing your agendas. And excuse me, let it just not go unsaid. I know that we've met with everyone individually, but I want to make sure to emphasize to the public and to the task force that our role is as facilitators, not as directors, not as chair people. So we are not going to be dictating a whole lot about this body. We are really here to help you all do the work that you need to do to be successful. So I know we've gotten to discuss that with you one-on-one, but for the public's benefit, we are facilitators and not directors. I do hear what I think is a dog barking in the background. So if there are ways to stay muted and less talking, that's helpful. Not that we don't love our dogs, but I know we've all got lots of household sounds to contend with. Okay. Thank you, Kevin, for your question, by the way. As I said, these are Barkley. Nice to meet you. Barkley, I think, was the name of the dog on Sesame Street, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, you see up on the screen some discussion agreements that we all, the four of us, Joe, Norma, Sarah, and I, have used on different occasions as we've facilitated. And these are meant to not be so much ground rules as agreements. We're all peers. We're all, in this together, so to speak. So you're not going to hear me or any of the other facilitators, discipline anybody for a potential, trespass of these agreements. But we are meant to hold all of each other accountable. And so we want to make sure that the agreements we adopt are ones that folks feel comfortable adopting. So I'd invite you to take a moment and review the agreements on the screen. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to share them. If you feel comfortable with the agreements as written, you can give us a Zoom thumb up or another indication of support, but we certainly would welcome changes, additions, and the like. Thanks, Cynthia. And Charles. And Joshua. And Ismail. And LaJewel. And Tish and Aubrey. Corey says yes. Thank you, sir. Marcus and Marcus. Thank you both. I think this may be a first for me to have two people with the same name in the same square. I'm really excited. M2, we're going to call them. Any folks want to make any additional comment on the discussion agreements? I see a lot of thumbs up. Well, I will assume that these work for folks unless folks let us know otherwise. Certainly if after this meeting you think of changes you'd like to make, we would welcome them. Please don't hesitate, but we will very gladly utilize these as just a way to, as I say, maintain a brave space for meaningful dialogue to occur. So thank you all for that feedback. I'm going to hand things over to Sarah Omar.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to see everyone here tonight. I did want to take a few minutes to do an exercise about asking everyone to say their name, and then one thing you love about living in Elgin, and then kind of asking, what are you looking forward to getting out of this process? This is just a start to kind of introduce everyone and for everyone to get to know each other, because we are going to work as a team moving forward here. So Larry, maybe we can stop sharing so folks can see each other as they introduce themselves. Great, thank you.
I will add to the chat window for those who can see it, the questions that Sarah just asked, just so you have them in front of you.
Thank you. So the first person I see is Charles. Charles, if you can first start just introducing yourself, saying one thing you love about living in Elgin and what one thing you're looking forward to get out of this process. And then I ask if you can just popcorn it to someone after you're done. Oh, Charles, you're on mute. Oh, we can't hear you.
You may want to try *6, Charles, because your audio is still muted to us.
How about now?
Now we got you.
We can hear you.
Okay, I have it on my phone because I was having problems on it. I'm glad to be here. My name is Charles Horton. What I love about Elgin is the diversity. Even though it's not always comfortable diversity, we still have the makings of a great city compared to a lot of other places where the diversity may not be there. What I hope to get out of this is something that'll not only help Elgin, but something that will be a model for a lot of other cities across the country that have the same problem. I will pass it on to Mr. Ward.
You were passing it on to me? I'm sorry, I missed the last part of what you said, Charles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm one of the facilitation members, so I'll just pass it along to the next person that I see who's on the task force. Who do I see? Looks like it is, can't see names. Carol.
Actually, Joe, right before Carol speaks, I just want to say hello to Sheila Brown. A number of you have heard from Sheila or Jessica Cortez, who work with our team out of the University of Illinois in Chicago, and we thank her for being part of our team and for all the efforts she's done to get us to tonight's meeting. So hi to Sheila. Carol, you're up.
Okay, my name is Carol Bailey, and what I like about Elgin is I love the downtown, and there's always something good and fun and safe that you can do. And what I hope to get from being part of the task force is I want all my friends and neighbors to trust the Elgin police as much as I'm starting to. And I'm going to pass it on to Norma. Oh, wait, she's a facilitator. Just a minute. Okay, let's go for Sheila Brown.
Oh, we need Sheila to answer. This is going to be fun.
Hi, I'm Sheila Brown. I've spoken to some of you. I'm actually here to support Joe, Norma, Larry, and Sarah and you all as well with the task force. So unfortunately, I don't live in Elgin. It is nice. I have visited, and I just hope that you all get everything that the community needs from this meeting. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
You still have to popcorn it to the next person, Ms. Brown.
So I'm going to popcorn it to Walter.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Well, Elgin is a small town with a big city flavor. Simply meaning that Elgin has all kind of diversity, and also not only diversity, but it has the microcosm of a large city. And matter of fact, I often say when I go to Chicago, tell people we're not a suburbs of Chicago, but we are a satellite city. Therefore, knowing demographics and also knowing what a city is, Elgin is over 50,000 population. So therefore, according to the Illinois statutes, of 50,000 more than, and also it feed on itself. We don't have to go outside of Chicago to make Elgin a city. Elgin is sufficient by itself. Saying that, what I would love to get out of this commission, this task force, is what Carol got out of it. I want to trust the police as well as she trusted.
Thank you, sir.
You
want me to pass it on to who? Let me pass it on to Joshua Buckley. Brockley, is it Brockway?
Brockway, yes, sir. Thank you. I'm Joshua Brockway. The thing that I love about Elgin is already a lot of what's said is the diversity, especially as I have kids in the community. They're growing up in a community where not everybody looks or talks like them, and I appreciate those opportunities for them as they grow. I think that's a key for them, as well as for our family. What I'm hoping to get out of this is to to leverage some of where we are as a society right now. I think this is perfect timing to begin to look at what's going on in terms of our community, but also in terms of policing, and build on some of the good foundations and move into a more constructive ways of being a safe community, and also where that diversity flourishes. So I'll go next. How about, is it Tish Kallheimer? Is that how you say the last name? Sorry.
It's Calamer, badly Americanized by my German great grandfather. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. One of the things I love about Elgin is our can-do attitude. We don't back down from a challenge. I think this task force is evidence of that. We come together, we discuss things, we put on parades, we put on events, we help out our neighbors. We do it all. And I really like that and appreciate that about Elgin. It's not one of those places where you don't know your neighbor, where you stay, locked up indoors and you don't venture out. And we have a vibrant cultural scene that's locally grown. And we have opportunities to express ourselves in artistic ways and speech and whatnot. And I really appreciate that. What I hope to get out of the task force is I want this to be an opportunity for people to speak and for people to be heard, and to really raise up the art of conversation and meaningful dialogue, because that's really the foundation of democracy, and that's something that I believe in. And I will bump it over to LaJewel.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. The one thing that I love about Elgin, well, of course, I was born and raised here, and seemingly I seem to be the only one that was born and raised, and I'm still here. So that tells you that I have great hope and dedication here to Elgin. And I do love that we are diversified. That's what I've always known. But I have not liked, of course, the different things that has happened, especially regarding the Black community and the policing. So I'm hoping what we get out of this is that we're able to finally get on one accord, and where everyone within the city is respected and looked at as the same. Yeah, that's basically what I would like. And then, of course, to make our relations with the police much, much better. If we're saying that they are servants to the community, then that should be to all of the citizens of Elgin. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. And I'm going to kick it over to Cynthia Rivera.
Hello, and thank you. My name is Cynthia Rivera, and I am also born and raised in Elgin. I've seen it. What I love about it is the diversity, the adaptability of Elgin, and the different connections that are made within the community, like Tish had mentioned. I've seen Elgin just ebb and flow and grow in different areas. And I like what Joshua said as well about building upon a good foundation. I think that's very important, because there are many things that are going right that we can build upon. And then there's other things that we need to make corrections for with. And I think that's very important. I also think that this is what I plan to get out of the community, this task force, is to give a voice to the community, to bring everyone together and just come up with some solutions that for the things that might need correcting or different ideas of how to move forward. So that's about it. And I will pass it to Aubrey.
Hey everyone, I'm glad to be here tonight. What I love about living in Elgin is I love everything that everyone has said. I love the diversity. I love that I have 2 kids, and I love that they get to go to school and be around people who have had different experiences than them and who look different than them. And I think that's really a cool thing that they get to have. I feel known in Elgin. My neighbors know me. They call me when my kid is being kind of a jerk down the street. And I love that about Elgin. I love that community feel. And I love the creativity of the people who live in Elgin. There's always something creative and fun going on. And I really appreciate that a lot about this community. Something that I'm hoping to get out of this task force is I really have a desire that, I love this city and I love the people in it and I love our community. And what I'm hoping to see come out of this is to find some solutions to forge a pathway forward when it comes to policing and community engagement, so that everyone can feel safe here. Everyone can feel like they, can feel safe and protected and be in a space where we can just move forward with that. So I want to pass it to, I'll pass it to Karen.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen. Thank you. What I love about Elgin is I'm fairly new to Elgin actually, but I love its potential. It has immense potential to be a great city. Its community is fantastic, and we have all the opportunity in the world to develop into something that is truly inclusive and equitable to our people. And what I'm looking forward to in this task force is not just the pipeline of communication with the people, with its people, but a little bit of giving back to, I believe there's been some neglect here and there, and I believe it's time to bridge that gap and have that communication and have that talk. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Penny.
Hello, everyone. My name is Penelope Williams. I often go by Penny, so that's why just Penny's in there. I am also a lifelong Elginite, born and raised. What I love about Elgin is the same thing a lot of us have said. I have been fortunate enough, as I was born and raised in Elgin, to always live in a diverse community. So I have always enjoyed that. Sometimes we had to be the first to go into the community to diversify it, but it happened. And so that's one thing that I have always enjoyed. No matter where I go, the communities are more diverse than ever before, and it's continuing to grow, even the community that I'm living in now. What I would like to get out of this is I would like this community to work with, of course, closely with our police department and build better relationships across the board. It's not just, I would like to really see our youth, our teens, our up and coming drivers and all those have real education on the roads, not just the rules of the road, but education of what should happen and how to behave and act should they be pulled over. I think that's very key, but that's also something that all of us should learn, because when we were most of the time learning how to drive, we didn't get those lessons of what you should be doing should you get pulled over. So that's what I would like to see happen as far as educating our community. And I am going to pass it off to Shimon Blanchard.
Good evening, all. My name is Shimon Blanchard. I wasn't born and raised in Elgin, but I've been here half my life, I'll say. What I love about Elgin is the growth. As it continues to grow, as it continues to become a larger city, you still have that down home feel where you know your neighbors, you know your neighbors' kids. I think Elgin has the potential to grow into be a great city, but still have that down home feel. And what I would like to see come from the task force is a working relationship where both sides are heard, where both sides are valued, where everyone's opinion is taken into consideration. And also set a precedent, as I think Charles said, to have a task force that could be modeled, that could be replicated, not just for Elgin, but other cities as well. With that being said, I'll pass it to Marcus. Marcus.
Hello, my name is Marcus Bradley. I'm from Elgin, born and raised here. And one thing I love about Elgin, I should say, is Elgin itself, the people, the city, the culture, what it brings to the nearby cities around us. It's like a mini Chicago, the city within the city, you know, our motto. I'm a proud Elginite, and what I hope to gain from this task force is, and also what I hope all of you are really here for is for the police to be aware that they are here to serve and protect us, even people that have my skin color here, because I want people that have my complexion to be able to trust from where I grew up in Elgin, on the east side, where you know a lot of the riffraff happens. And so when you come up from that side of town, the police look at you as a certain way. No matter if we're black, white, or Mexican, when you grow up in that certain side of Elgin, the police like to look at you a certain way. So I want the police to know that it doesn't matter what we look like, they're still here to serve and protect us. And pass it over to Coach.
How y'all doing? I'm Marcus Banner, People's Champ. I've been in Elgin for almost 30 years. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I like about Elgin is that it's ever expanding, has endless opportunities for individuals, families, and business to grow and become the best version of themselves, itself, in order to have a healthy and united community. So all of that opportunity is here. It's all in what we make it. What I would like to get from this, I hear a lot of people saying, you know, we want to be able to trust law enforcement. There's some I trust, there's some I don't. You know, I've actively had a lot of conversations with a lot of officers about different circumstances and situations. But in order to have trust, there has to be a balance of power. So what I would like to see out of this is to get to a place where the people actually have power of accountability, the same as law enforcement. They have the tools to be able to hold us accountable, yet we have no tools to truly hold them accountable. So accountability is the thing that I seek, and I always have sought for the past, 15 years or so. So that's what I would like to see out of this. So I will shift it over to Ishmael.
Oh, did I? Sorry, it froze for a second. I didn't know. Hi, everyone. My name is Ishmael Cordova, but I go by Ish for short. I moved to Elgin when I was 8 years old, and I absolutely love living here. I recently bought a property here as well, so really sewing myself into the weeds here. The one thing that I absolutely love about our city is definitely the resiliency of our community and the people within our community. When you go out and speak to our residents, you hear heartbreaking and empowering stories of how they've overcome and what brought them to our city in the first place. And I feel that those resilient stories of each resident has really amplified the character of our city. And that's what makes me fall in love with Elgin, the way I brag about it in every place I go to. I just finished undergrad, so being in the Zoom room and taking turns introducing ourselves is a little PTSD, but it really is a phenomenal city with so much potential, as everyone said. The one thing that I really look forward to with this task force is not only setting a precedent of how to communicate within the community and the police department, but setting a precedent that we don't need long-standing methods to accomplish goals quickly and how to get our voices heard. Because oftentimes, especially when it's relayed over to a local municipality or even a state municipality, people think that it's going to take forever for an issue to be solved. And our goal here is to hear each other's voices, speak out for our community, and get to solutions that will solve the problems quickly. And not if not quickly, and at least in a short-term manner. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with all of you, hearing your stories, because that's one thing that I've learned as the Black Lives Matter protests have increased and the attention to discrimination and racism has approached. Although I grew up in the low-income ghetto neighborhoods of Elgin, I had my own personal privilege that kind of helped me leeway in relationships with the police whenever I interacted with them. And so, you know, I just really look forward to what we're going to be accomplishing together. And I'm going to pass it over to Denise.
Thanks, Ishmael. And that was my dog Barkley who's making all that noise before. So what I love about Elgin, in addition to what everybody just said, is that Elgin has given me the opportunity to have met the majority of people on this panel. And that's an incredible, incredible gift that I have, that I've received. I think Elgin is a place where if you want to get involved in something, there is something here for everybody. And I think that, as Marcus Banner was speaking, part of what he said resonated with me because he and I met 15 years ago as part of the Elgin Gang and Drug Task Force. And Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe you were really welcomed with open arms. I mean, some of us did. And so I think in that span of 15 years, there's been some, it's like, what a difference 15 years makes. And so I appreciate having this opportunity. The other part of what I want to get out of this task force is that there's actually meaningful change and actionable accountability that occurs. And whatever the result is from all of our work. And that's about it. And I will pass it over to Corey Battles.
That about last about least, huh? So pretty much I moved here in Elgin in 1981. I've been here a little over 40 years, and I love the diversity. Pretty much everybody said the same as, Dean already. I love the diversity of Elgin that we have. What I'm looking forward, out of this task force is to bring recommendations of police building and community building. And that's pretty much my overall, what I really want to do, and accountability and transparency for everybody.
We do still have Kevin Saldivar, I believe.
Okay.
Hi, thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'll keep it short just so that we can continue conversating. So what I like about Elgin is, I think someone mentioned the word adaptability. I kind of agree with what Cynthia and Joshua said earlier, that Elgin has many good things and Elgin has a lot of things that we can improve on. And I think adaptability is the perfect word for that. And we see that in a lot of the departments in the work of Elgin nowadays. One thing I want to get out of this task force, maybe more accurately put, I want people to get out of this, is I want this task force to be a catalyst to many other changes in Elgin and redefining Elgin's definition of public safety, and even redefining the definition of public safety for other cities. Again, that adaptability factor is what's going to play a big role in this work that we're going to do. I'm looking forward to discussing with the police department their goals and objectives in the near future. And I would like to defund the police to be able to invest in other public sectors. So I'm looking forward to analyzing the police department and taking the work as seriously as the application for this position came to be, and really holding not just this task force accountable to the standards in the application, but also accountability with the police department as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Sherman, I think you're the last one to go. Sherman, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Still cannot hear you, Sherman. Perhaps we can, Larry, move on, and then if Sherman can connect to his audio, we can give him space to introduce himself.
Without a doubt. Sarah, thanks. And more importantly, thank you all. Believe it or not, an exercise like that actually inspires me, because I too want to be part of something that is a model for the rest of the country. And I will tell you that our firm has actually worked with some communities around the country, and the zeal and the passion that's evident just in that, the responses to that exercise, have me fairly convinced that this will in fact turn out to be a model for the nation. So I commend you all. I'm going to turn things to Joe and Norma, colleagues of ours from the University of Illinois at Chicago, for an update on the conversations that we had with you all leading up to this first meeting. And they'll take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Joe Horath. I guess I could do just a quick introduction of myself, as I passed it along without introducing myself. As a reminder, I'm here in the Chicago region. I'm at UIC, director of the Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement, and part of this team. The members of our team spoke with all of you individually in our preparations for this first meeting, and it was great. It was really great. I know they were brief conversations. Some of you, all of you wish we could have talked much longer. But we wanted to just kind of honor what we're saying in those conversations, in terms of just bringing back to you kind of the themes we heard from those conversations. And so Norma and I are going to just go over those, and I'm going to turn it over to Norma here.
Thank you, Joe.
Can't see you, Norma. Oh, there you are.
Okay.
To go ahead and go over those themes.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. I just want to introduce myself as well. I'm Norma Ramos. I'm the Associate Director at the Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement. I've been here at the Institute since it was founded in 2008. My pronouns are she, her, and Aya. And actually, I wanted to also just say something quickly about Elgin. I'm in Chicago, but I spent a lot of time in the suburbs and in Elgin area as well. And I really appreciate the diversity of Elgin and spending time out there. My nephew's in basketball, so we spend a lot of time on the road in AAU basketball tournaments, if you all are familiar with that. So I just appreciate being able to explore so many parts of the Chicago region and the state of Illinois. So thank you and hello, and looking forward to working with you all. As Joe mentioned, we had an opportunity to meet with you all, Sarah, Larry, Joe, and I, and we kind of wanted just to kind of highlight a couple of like overall themes that we heard in terms of some of the goals that you all shared with us, and even the goals of the task force. And so I'm just going to highlight, and we actually highlighted many of them that we've just shared them out loud together here at this time. And so it's really exciting to hear that we're all sort of like on the same page and journey together. And so those highlights are supporting the community with communications, education, and understanding of policy. There was an additional overall theme of establishing community representation, diverse perspectives and voices, thinking about ways to enhance community and police engagement, thinking of ways to share important resources that we all have, that we have connections to and can help support. And then also thinking about those tangible outcomes, right? And thinking about ways that we can actually support the community and what that looks like. And then thinking about like the overall sort of goals of the task force. Many of the overall themes were thinking about supporting, reviewing, and analyzing policy, procedures, and process. Thinking about providing recommendations to build policy and new approaches, right? Like what does that look like? Thinking about ways to recommend accountability process. And also thinking about creating ideas to help build and enhance relationships between the police, community, and youth. So we've kind of been talking about that and sharing that in this space, but also sharing that with us individually. And so we just wanted to highlight that quickly to think about like what were the overall themes that were shared with us, what did that look like, and thinking about those as we move forward in the work that we're doing. So thank you. Perhaps I can share it back to Joe for a sec.
Yes, thanks, Norma. I think, sorry, my dog is growling. Apologize. I just want to say that while these themes are great, and we heard you all, many of you sort of repeat these in your expectations and what you'd like to get out of being a part of this task force, these are things that in some cases we'll be discussing earlier in the process, and maybe even some of the things we may be getting to further down the line. And once we get deeply into the process. So I just wanted to point that out. And I'll turn it back to, I think the next slide is Sarah.
Not to usurp Sarah's role at all, Joe, but I think actually I'm meant to take this. We're still learning our places in our lines here. But thank you very much. I do want to just take a point of professional privilege and mention a couple of other things about our colleagues, Joe and Norma at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Joe is actually a member of the independent monitoring team for the Chicago Police Consent Decree. So beyond just being a Chicago resident and a longtime Chicago resident and a scholar, he brings some real meaningful subject matter expertise, as does Norma, who also spearheaded one of the nation's most cutting edge public engagement initiatives known as On the Table, which you may have heard about, a Chicago citywide initiative that was very well received a number of years back. And as you know, this task force is meant to engage the Elgin community in its work. That's part of what we are here to assist you all with. And so it's very exciting to us to be able to leverage Norma's and Joe's great track record and expertise, both with the subject matter of this task force and with the practice of public engagement. So thank you to Joe, thank you to Norma very much. Let me actually also, I don't know how many football fans there are. I know the Chicago Bears have been in the headlines here a little bit the last few days. I won't say anything more about that. But I am going to call a little bit of an audible and have us take our break now. It is 6:51 by my watch. And so I would ask that we come back at 7 o'clock. So feel free to grab a glass of water, get a little snack, whatever you need to do. But we will pause here and return at 7 o'clock. Thank you all. We'll resume in about 2 minutes if folks can wind up their break. If folks could rejoin us on video, we will resume our conversation. It's funny, we were hearing from Denise and Joe about growling dogs. You might hear yelping children in my case, so I apologize in advance if there are any disruptions. I have a feeling there might be, but I'll do my best to keep things quiet. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks again for the great participation so far. What I'm going to do is move us to a conversation that deals with our scope of work and our timeline. And what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to be engaging us in an exercise where we try to prioritize the topics that we are meant to cover. As you see on this slide, I'm actually not going to go through this slide exactly this way because of how small we had to make the font, but Council Members Powell and Shaw and the City Council as a whole have developed this very robust scope of work for this body to review and for us to assist you in reviewing. And as I say, I'm going to go through it bit by bit here on a different display. But the one thing I wanted to make you aware of before I do is that we are meant to work with you all and have this task force do its work over the next several months, and then conclude with a report of consensus recommendations from this body by June of 2022. So just to reiterate, we would be meeting both in full task force and perhaps in subcommittee between now and June, and by June would have produced a final report that we may help compile, but will be the words and the sentiments of this body. And you'll note I mentioned consensus. We are hopeful that we can work with you all to develop recommendations that everyone on the task force feels they can live with, support, or at least don't feel obliged to oppose. We have done a lot of work with task forces, in particular municipal task forces around the country, and we find that when formal votes are taken and there's a close margin, a lot of folks on the losing end of that vote tend to feel very unresolved and maybe a little dissatisfied. And so we're hoping to strive with your support for consensus in your recommendations, where recommendations may be revised to meet the needs of all task force members, but then once the City Council receives them, they'll know that they have a very broad cross-section of community support. One other note I would make in terms of process is that we won't be waiting until June's final report to transmit your work to the City Council. Certainly Councilmember Shaw and Powell's participation in these meetings will help the City Council stay apprised, but we also intend to transmit formally your recommendations to the City Council as you come to consensus on them, because time is of the essence. This is a topic that is of deep concern to all. And the sooner that the City Council gets your recommendations and can thereby act upon them, we think the better. So as you all develop and approve recommendations by consensus, our team is committed to sending those directly and formally to the City Council for their further discussion and hopefully implementation. So I'm going to stop my screen share for just a moment. And I'm going to be putting a link into the chat window. And I know that this may seem like we are getting a little highfalutin with the technology tonight, but I hope that you will oblige me, because this link is going to take you to a page that's designed to have you all help us with prioritizing the work that is before you as a task force. For the public's benefit, I'll just let you know that we're going to be looking at a page on a site, on a platform called Poll Everywhere. And Poll Everywhere is a piece of software that I've used on many occasions, which allows for anonymous responses in real time from attendees about a particular question. And in this case, as I share my screen here, what you'll see is that the members of the task force will be looking at a list of all of the different things that the City Council has asked this task force to examine. And so what we'd like to ask you to do as members of the task force is to move your cursor over to a particular task. And if you feel it needs to be a top priority and taken up right away, you would click on the thumb up, so to speak. If you feel that it is not as important, you might give it a thumbs down, which isn't to say you don't think it should be discussed, but just that it doesn't have quite as much importance to you maybe as the others. Again, the scope is in full in its entirety, and it's not that we're going to omit any topics, but it would help us as we work with the chair and co-chair and the task force to organize your meetings to understand where we should start in the way of all of these topics and how we should proceed. So certainly if you have questions about how to get to this page and how to be able to participate, please let me know either in the chat window or on microphone. But as long as you go to the link that's in the chat window, it should take you right to this page and then allow you to review all of the different parts of the scope, and then to decide which ones you'd like to prioritize. I see a hand from Task Force Member Calamer.
Thank you. Can we leave some of them unanswered if
Yes,
we don't feel okay?
Absolutely. You can do one or all of them. It's entirely up to you. This is just a way for us to kind of straw poll the group to determine how we might sequence things. But if you don't feel strongly one way or the other, you can certainly omit. Yeah, nothing is required in that way.
I can be blissfully tepid then on some of them.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. Blissfully tepid. That sounds like a cool band name or something. Yes, so I'm seeing already that some folks are weighing in, which is great. I'm going to shift my screen here for just a moment so that you all can see this being played out in real time and the public can see it. And I'll go through these here in just a minute. LaJewel, yes, I will get the link back to you all here in just a second. One moment, please. There. Thank you, Councilmember. So I will. We will keep our eyes on this screen for now. Just flagging that so far the notion of barriers to reporting and training have been polling particularly high. As well as consistency of the police department's use of force policies with best practices nationally. Again, if anyone needs any tech support, please let me know. I know this is probably a new tool for everyone. And as we're responding, I also just want to mention both to you all and to the public that, of course, we in some ways regret that this meeting needs to have taken place virtually. We are obviously all very mindful of the status of the pandemic and the Delta variant of COVID-19. We're certainly hoping that our meetings can be face-to-face in the relatively short term. We just felt that it would be most advisable to get started as quickly as possible and to do things in this fashion. But we do hope that our meetings will pick up face-to-face soon. So as I say, training policies are certainly top priority, as is the use of force policies, and not surprisingly, the accountability, the notion of accountability for the department is also rating very high, which comes as no surprise from our conversation earlier. Some other high polling priorities include the reporting process for complaints, a model for formal civilian review of police matters, existing processes for citizen reporting and filing of complaints, and so on. Denise asks, she seems to have lost the survey. How many questions were there? I believe that there are a total of 11 items on this docket, Denise, and just in case it would help, I will give you back the link and hopefully that will get you back to the survey. I appreciate everybody adapting so quickly to this platform.
Hey, Larry, I see Tish has her hand up. Was that from earlier, or you have
I
another
think
question?
that may have been from earlier. Member Kellemer, was that your earlier hand? I think it was. It was, okay. Thank you so much. I am somewhat astonished that we have managed to put both Councilmember Tish Powell and Task Force Member Tish Gallimer on in the same group. That's not a name I hear every day.
And we also have two Marcuses.
We do.
Marci.
Marci seems very advanced Latin grammar. That's a good conjugation there. All right, well, we'll give it about 30 more seconds. I think we've gotten great responses so far. Again, for the public's benefit, we are seeing that the accountability for the police department is high on the list, as is the use of force policy, training, barriers to suppress or discourage reporting of complaints, a model for formal civilian review, and some other matters related to reporting. Again, just to clarify to the public and to the task force, we will be taking up all of the 11 items that the task force is meant to tackle. This is just a way for us to try to sequence the way in which the task force will tackle various topics. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our share. Certainly, if you'd still have responses you'd like to make, the poll will stay active. So feel free to complete any response that you weren't able to complete. But I think we've got some great input from you all, and we'll discuss in more depth how we'll sequence these topics for future meetings later on in our agenda. That, I believe, should take us to a discussion of the chair and co-chair positions. And for that, I would be turning things to my colleague, Sarah Omar.
Thank you, Larry. As everyone was aware that this was a question we asked during the application period, we are looking to identify a chair and co-chair that will really help with providing leadership on content development, including agendas for upcoming meetings in partnership with us as the facilitation team. We're here to support, but also helping identify emerging themes and maintaining deadlines within the group, and then kind of just ensuring that the scope we're meeting, what's the requirements in the scope. So it's really something that we would like to have a conversation about, if any, for those, if you have questions about the role of the chair and co-chair, and then just kind of get an assessment of possible interest in these positions, and as that we can partner with moving forward.
I want to make one additional point about chair and co-chair, Sarah, and that is we believe that the chair and co-chair should be sort of the first folks that might give comments to the public, to the media, as it relates to the task force work. That's not something that we as a team of facilitators feel would be appropriate. You all may have seen quotations from me or my colleagues in earlier articles. Those were just taken from the presentations we were making publicly to the city council. We weren't giving interviews, and we think it's most appropriate for the task force to speak for itself. And certainly any task force member could comment publicly, but if inquiries come to the city from the media, we would hope that a chair and co-chair would be positioned to field those as best they can and as much as they would like. So I just wanted to add that on.
And of course, it's with our support and helping how to navigate that, and ensuring that you have that support when it comes to responding to media. I don't know if Larry mentioned, but in his previous life, he was a journalist, so we kind of can help with that process.
Denise.
My question is, and maybe this is a basic, what are you asking us right now to do?
Basic questions are good questions, Denise. We sometimes trip over our own complexity. And forgive me, Sarah, for stepping in. I'll give it back to you in a sec. But I think really we'd like to know if there are particular things about the chair, co-chair responsibilities that you would like us to sort of add to what we've already shared. And if you would like to either put yourself forward for one of those roles or nominate someone else in the group for those roles. We don't want to pressure you all to feel like a vote needs to be taken tonight. Some of you are just meeting each other for the first time. But we'd just like to have your input as to how you'd like the roles to be shaped and who you'd like to have serve in those roles.
Thank you.
Kevin, I see your hands up.
Hi, I would like to propose first that for the task force to vote on whether we want a chair and co-chair type of structure, or if we want a more circular structure. And by circular, I mean, I've worked in nonprofits that allowed individual members to take on individual projects with the support of the team. So that allowed for more kind of individually, like being able to look at subject matters. So if I came up with a project, right, and I'm the one who's leading the project, I probably will most likely know how to do that project best. With that idea in mind, having the support and the resources of a team would allow me to execute that faster. However, again, that's just a possibility to get maybe more people on more projects or different types of people of different projects and not leaving everything to a chair or co-chair. However, there are also benefits in having a chair and co-chair, which includes kind of a more easier structure to track and manage, of course, but that's up to people.
No, thank you, Kevin. That's a very great suggestion, and one that we can definitely take into consideration. Really just emphasizing this is your task force, and us as a facilitation team, we're here to just support. So So if this is something that is voted as a structure, we'll be here to support that moving forward. And I just wanted to plug here that there is, as we move on with these tasks, we could be developing subcommittees that kind of lead on a certain topic from the scope of work. So if there's a certain topic that is you're very passionate about, we can help divide subcommittees and kind of have them working in the same time to just be more efficient there.
And we could have a chair of a subcommittee as well, I think, if that would be helpful to forming those agendas.
I see Carol, you have your hand up.
Hi. I don't mean to put too fine a point on it. I've worked with Denise Haven in a lot of different environments, and I would like to nominate her for chair.
Well, thank you, Carol.
I think we might as well get going.
Denise, do you would you like to be considered for one or both of the roles?
Not for both, for one or the other.
Fair enough. Yeah, so we'll make note of that, but.
Thank you.
How do you get your hands held up? How can you get your hands? Because I don't know I'm trying to point and get my hands held up here. How do you do that?
Walter, if you look on the bottom row of your Zoom screen, you should see an icon that says reactions. And if you click on reactions, you should see one that says raise hand.
This is a totally new computer, so I don't see any of that.
You might have to scroll down.
However, since I got the mic already, I'm going to talk. What is the role? And I'll have no objection for Denise. I know Denise is a pretty fair person. However, what is the role of the chair? Is this chair going to be autonomous? Is he or she going to be directed by, since it's developed by the council, would that person be directed by the council? Will this person be directed by your company, Larry? What is will this person have complete autonomous to report directly and to deal and to direct of the direction of the task force itself?
Walter, your questions are very well taken. I don't want to speak for council members Powell or Shaw, but I don't believe the council intends to, direct the chair or direct the task force any more than they already have in the way that they've laid out your scope of work. And so that chair would certainly be, I suppose the task force is all serving at the pleasure of the council, but it's not one that where the council wants to, steer a chairperson in one direction or the other. And to your question about our role, we essentially would envision meeting with the chair and co-chair in between meetings, discuss what they think based on task force input should be on the next agenda, discuss how they'd like the meeting to go, how they'd like us to engage, how they would like to assist, how they'd like us to assist. And then we would just come up together with a draft agenda, send to you all for feedback, and then go from there.
But let me give a better example. If in fact we come up with a consensus that our police department, and I don't think it is, but it may be, if it is a paramilitary department or a police force, and we're saying that's too much money to spend on a paramilitary force in a city like this, and we're saying that fund should be directed somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I don't know how controversial that is with the council or with the police department, because those are some of the things I'm pretty sure that we would be looking at when we're talking about, as Calvin's point was, maybe defunding and putting the fundings in other directions. Hopefully that we'll be looking at those things. So I'm just saying, when things get controversial or so-called controversial, when you're talking about defunding or appropriating funds in another direction, are we going to, be stopped or criticize, et cetera, which I don't mind the criticism. That's
Yes, sir. I can't swear to to blocking all criticism, obviously, in a
right,
country like
for
ours.
sure.
But as it relates to being stifled in your work, and again, not meaning to speak for this, not meaning to speak for the council, but you are meant to deliberate as independently and as thoughtfully as you possibly can, and provide the council with your very best judgment. And if that judgment ruffles feathers, so be it. It is not. I don't see your recommendations needing to fit into any kind of a box. You really will have the autonomy to be able to say what you believe, and that's the space that we intend to cultivate as facilitators for you to do. Just parenthetically, want to make a quick point. This is not a matter that we need to decide today, either to pick a chair and co-chair, or even to make a final decision. There are a number of comments in the Zoom chat, and since the public can't see it, I just want to give everybody some transparency. A number of folks would. Yes, Penny. Yeah, if you don't mind, just give me one quick second. The number of task force members said they'd like to wait until they learn about each other before selecting chair or co-chair. So a number of folks have made that point. But Penny, please.
I was going to actually make that point as well, but I was going to say, could you gather up some of the specifics and email the entire committee? That way we can have some time to pour over what these responsibilities would be. And then we can come together as a group when we meet again and kind of go over and then see who may be interested. Because, you know, without having really understanding what the responsibilities are going to be, of course, you know, no one's ready to jump right in. They want to kind of see what those are. So if we can have like an email list come to us and we can all, as a group, individually look over it and then maybe come together, because I agreed, not tonight, but, you know, during our next meeting, and maybe we'll have more consensus at that point in time.
Yes, and I just wanted to reiterate, this was really just a start of a conversation, kind of getting everyone starting to think about this role of a chair or co-chair, and what possibility their role would be, and how providing a space to start thinking about additional tasks or that this person will take on. So I think that is a great next step. Will be to for us as a facilitation team to follow up after this meeting with just kind of more specific on what this role would look like, and then and ask for the task forces to take some time to think through that, and if in the interim between now and the next task force meeting, we can kind of have a more robust discussion about that. And I do see some folks have their hands up. Joshua and then Ishmael.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in the chat too is also just hearing about the persons as well as the task, right? So hearing, getting to know each other a bit. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to kind of know who has some skill sets or experience and kind of helping to facilitate. So I just was naming it's both the task and understanding who is on the committee a bit better on the task force.
Yes,
I agree.
Yes, thank you for naming that clearly. And I think that's something that we definitely need to continue having conversations as a team. And it's not something that we need to decide to like immediately, but we will kind of continue having this conversation as a group. Ishmael?
So I just wanted to touch on what Penelope and Joshua stated as well. I do think it's really important for us to get to know one another when it comes to making a decision, at least regarding leadership. And one thing that I think is really important to understand is when is the expected time to go to in-person meetings? Because if we're expecting to meet this whole month of October virtually, and we should probably start thinking about leadership right away, because we want to make the most out of these meetings. We don't want to like fill it up with fluff that's not essential. So my recommendation would be like, you all communicate with us in emails. So if getting to know us, you guys can provide like a list of questions we can answer that might be applicable to the chair. We can all answer that, and then all of us get emailed that information. So that way we know like the basics and we can put a face to the name, because there's a lot of faces right now. I think that would be really helpful for everybody. And the discussion about going back in person, like what's holding that back? Can we make a group decision to decide that we want to go back in person, if we want to stay virtual? I think that's just really important for all of us to kind of understand a little bit more, at least when we begin this process.
I had a logistics question.
Yes.
How many times are we going to meet? Are we going to meet twice a month or once a month?
Yes, so this is actually an agenda item that Larry was going to facilitate after this, kind of just put like frequency and having those meetings scheduled.
Okay, because the only point I wanted to make was, by my count, we only have 9 more months until this committee we no longer exist. So we don't want to waste too much time. And I don't think we're wasting time. I didn't mean it that way.
No,
we just trying to figure out how often we were going to meet.
Let me, excuse me for 1 second. I do want to just mention something that is an oversight on the facilitation team's part that we'll hope to correct by next meeting, and that is to provide the public with a way to follow our meeting in Spanish. I think we were hastily trying to make sure we had everything in order, and that's one piece that we had yet to develop, and that goes fully in line with our responsibility to help you all with community engagement. So just wanted to flag that, let you know that's something we will work to achieve by next meeting. I know Denise and the Marcuses both have their hands up, so we can maybe go to Denise and then the Marcuses.
Thank you. This is sort of a process question. I'm sort of a process person. Can we come up with some guidelines around the use of chat to have, because we're having a public discussion and we're supposed to be transparent, and there's lots of behind the scenes, really good conversations occurring in chat rather than, as part of the meeting. And I just want to make that observation, and I don't know how that's your job as the facilitators.
No, Denise, thank you for bringing that up. I am stepping in just because that is something that arose when I was facilitating a very similar body in another part of the country. And generally speaking, they did not use the Zoom chat for the very reason that you just described. It's not something that the public can see until after the fact. We certainly can post chats publicly after the fact, but it would be hard for us to do everything we're trying to do with this meeting and be live and so forth and have the chat visible. So that's something that I think we can tackle. I'm just from a process tonight standpoint, I'm just going to recommend that we put a bow on the chair co-chair piece, and then we can segue into some other general logistical items that I've heard us talk about. So Marcuses, I'm not sure which of the Marcuses wanted to speak, but if it's related to chair co-chair, go ahead.
Yeah, we're feeling like more of a round circle, right? The Knights of the Round Table kind of structure, and majority win. I mean, whatever the case is, what is out there, I don't think anybody should be put in a position where they feel like they're above or, get to dictate anything to anyone, because we're all here volunteering our time, and to say that somebody else is more important than the other, I think is a bad way to start this off. So I'd like to see a round table setting where we're having a discussion. We can take votes and have the majority make the decision, and then we move on.
Yeah, and I feel the exact same way. I don't like the concept of one person thinking they just have that power over a group. I mean, that's what we all were brought here for. We all were brought here to be one, a community as one, and just to say, oh, this is the chairperson, this is the head chair, that just doesn't sit well with me at all. I mean, I'm my own individual and I'm my own voice. And when I like to voice my opinion, I don't need no one else to be that stepping stone for me when I am my own steps. And so it's just, I don't like it. So I'm not really going to vote for anybody to, be head or anything of that nature.
I want to thank both of you for the candor there, and I want to encourage everybody else to be as candid in their views on this. And I would just say, in summary, we are not ready to move forward with a co-chair and chair this evening, as is evident. We do need to, I think, have a little bit of a further discussion about this. I think that the facilitation team, and I'm looking at Joe, Norma, and Sarah for kind of confirmation if this makes sense to you. I think it would be up to us to absorb the input that you all have given us tonight on this topic, and then provide you with a couple of recommendations to consider between now and next meeting, which could include no chair and co-chair. I mean, we certainly can operate with whatever structure is best for the group. So if that's okay with folks, I think we will take all of this input into consideration and return at the next meeting with some further suggestions. Is that something folks are okay with? I see Task Force Member Calamar.
Thank you. One thing I just thought of, because it seems that there's a fair amount of discomfort with the terms chair and co-chair. I think it sort of speaks to power, and we don't want to perhaps put forth that sort of image. Maybe what we need to do is identify roles that need to be taken up, and maybe most, if not everyone, can have a role. Somebody who's good at taking notes could be the note taker. You're a note taker, you're not a chair or co-chair. Maybe somebody that can keep an eye on the clock, can be the timekeeper. Maybe it could be more egalitarian, but we can still have some roles to play just to keep the meetings running smoothly. Make sure that we're accountable to each other, make sure that we're still, maintaining civility and respect, et cetera, et cetera. But nobody needs to be, queen or czarina or emperor, chair, co-chair, what have you.
Yeah, I'm smiling only because those are a lot of the things that we as your team intend to provide you. It's not to say that we would usurp the role of the task force in that regard, but we do consider it our responsibility to keep time, to take notes, to keep everyone on task, to keep the space brave. That really is, I think, what we're hoping to provide you. So again, not meaning to say task force members can't supplant or even replace us in that regard, but I think we understand that to be part of what we're here to provide you. Aubrey Flickman.
Yeah, I just wanted to quick chime in here and say that it feels to me like, or what I'm hearing is that it might even be helpful whether we select a chair or we select, more of an egalitarian process, or what that looks like. It might be helpful to define those terms, and maybe that is a priority we can set for our next meeting. That whatever it is, we're gonna, before we elect anyone or select a group, that we define what that looks like and define what we mean by that. I think that would be helpful to bring some trust and comfort to this group.
Without a doubt, we agree. And I think that we could only have done that with the input we've received tonight. And so I think that will position us well to continue to do that. Apologies for the noise of disruptive children in the background. All right, I see Walter's hand. Walter, you have discovered the raised hand. I'm very glad.
I see where it says react and all that there. I'm kind of mixed on this. I think you do, in a sense, need a chair. If you don't have a chair and a co-chair, how in the world that we just start just talking in this round table of 18, 20 something people? How do we do that? I'm used to operating on the Robert rules. I'm used to operating with a chair and a co-chair. So I'm kind of maybe, I'm kind of like the Amazon, the person who's probably the oldest maybe in this group. but I'm used to really operating with a chair and a co-chair. That person don't have no more power than I do, or you all do, because they have to vote on anything that we're doing. We have to come up with a consensus. So how he or she have power? They don't have no more power. It's a lot of work.
Yes, sir. I understand very much what you're saying, and I do sympathize with the fact that a lot of us are used to Robert's rules. Heck, I may have even named my second-born child after Robert's rules. But I think that I would make a couple of points for you to consider. One, this is not a group that has to follow Robert's rules. You do not have to. And then secondly, I think that from our vantage point, we just as a facilitation team want to make sure that we're working hand in glove with you all, not just during your meetings, but in preparation for and in reaction to your meetings. And so that's part of what we're just hoping to figure out the best mechanism for, rather than giving any one particular member or two members, different authority. It's more about just making sure that we can best orchestrate these meetings for you all with the maximum amount of input from the body. I'll go back to the Marcuses, and then I think it's probably best that we keep going on the agenda.
Yeah, as you said, I think that our city is paying you guys a lot of money to do all of those roles that, they're looking to, nominate and put people in. I think that is so unnecessary when we're paying you guys to do all of that. So I say, let's let our money work and sit at the round table and let majority rule. That's my last take on that.
Well, I appreciate the comment, and I'm taking as at least a lowercase c compliment that you're entrusting us with to do the work that we're being asked to do. Let me pivot us back for just a moment to a couple of other items that we wanted to kind of make sure we got to tonight before we conclude this first meeting. And I apologize, I'm just trying to get back to my my PowerPoint slideshow here. So give me 1 second. Okay. Denise brought up something that we want to make sure we touch upon with you all before we drop, and that is kind of a cadence, a rhythm, a schedule for this body to meet. Based on our conversations with you all individually leading up to tonight, it appears, but we want to check this, it appears that Thursday evenings are relatively doable as a fairly consistent time and date, day of the week to meet. In that regard, I think our about the possibility that we would meet twice monthly on Thursdays at around 6 o'clock. And those meetings could be the full task force, they could be a subcommittee meeting, they could be a community engagement event at which you're taking input from the community, but it would be utilized by the task force for a particular purpose. I think that one way to approach it would be to do, first and third Thursdays on a go forward. And of course, we may have things that arise, holidays and so forth, that we'd have to work around. But first and third Thursdays would avoid Thanksgiving, would avoid Christmas, and most other holidays that we're aware of. So that's, as you can hear in my voice, merely a suggestion. But certainly our team has worked through our own scheduling matters and believe that, Thursday evenings are generally going to be feasible for us. But we would like to get your all's reaction and let us know how you feel about a cadence like that, a first and third Thursday or an every other Thursday evening as a schedule. Any comments? Or if that works, you can give a thumbs up. Go ahead, Denise.
So I understand we're going to be soliciting a lot of community input. And for those kinds of activities, I'm wondering if those could be held on a weekend day.
They can.
And, have our meetings, again, I'm sort of processed, so I'm in my head. So having our meetings at regularly scheduled evenings, anything involving like a community forum, have that on a weekend to ensure maximum community availability and participation.
Without a doubt, and I was remiss in saying that our community engagement would go beyond your Thursday evening meetings. I do want to make one quick point about community engagement, and that for the public's benefit, and that is that we will provide, or we would like to provide, opportunities for public comment during these meetings for those who either want to come to City Hall or otherwise connect to our meetings. And so that's something we would intend to do going forward. The task force also received an email, and I don't want to interrupt this conversation just yet, but I do want to read that email to you all and to the public so that you are aware of it. It's public comment that was sent to the policing email address that we've set up. It'll be forwarded to the task force, but I think it would be helpful for everyone to hear that public comment. So again, just going back to Denise's point, yes, other days and times would certainly be feasible for community events.
Okay.
So I saw some thumbs up on the sort of first and third Thursday or every other Thursday. Any other feedback on that kind of a schedule? I'll just add that Thursdays appear to be mostly conflict-free if we want to use the city hall, the city council chamber. We've talked to the city about that, which isn't our only consideration, but it kind of helps. Kevin, go ahead.
As a point of clarity, I know that there's subcommittees of the city of Elgin that are not allowed to, meet without public notice. When there's more than 2 members. Is this body considered part of that, like an extension of the government that follows those rules? Or are we free to meet outside of these hours as well?
That's a terrific question. And it's one that I think we should make sure we are aligned with the city's own attorneys on.
We violate the Open Meetings Act.
Yes. I mean,
If
I
we
would
were
say,
together.
generally speaking, this is based on my own experience in the past. So I won't speak for the City of Elgin's law department, but I will say that we as the team believe we should give public notice for both subcommittee meetings and full task force meetings and allow the public to view them. As it relates to your conversations, I think so long as there are fewer than half of you in the conversation, and it's just a casual conversation or an email exchange, I don't believe that that's something that needs to be, shared with the entire public or publicized, nor do I think that it would be a problematic exchange. But I do think we have to be cognizant of quorum. And I think, team, correct me if I'm wrong, are we an 18 member? I can't remember how many total we have on the 18.
Yes.
So
18.
essentially, if for some reason more than 9 people were in conversation, then we would potentially have a challenge, as I understand it. Yes,
Yeah.
Joe.
I think that number is actually smaller. We can confirm that with Rick, but it might be 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a specific number. We can confirm that and get back to you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, just back to what I thought was kind of the crux of Kevin's question. We believe that all of your meetings where you deliberate should be publicly noticed, publicly viewable, and so forth.
And Larry, if I can chime in, this is Councilwoman Powell, just to that question. And I think that's important for folks to know, because a lot of the folks that are serving on this task force know each other, see each other out and about, maybe even, see each other socially. And it's important for everyone to be aware that we are a public body. We are governed by the Open Meetings Act. And the way the Open Meetings Act is structured, it's the majority of a quorum. So as Joe mentioned, it's a lot smaller than 9. I think it's around 4 or 5 for this size group. And we can get clarification on that. And basically, and we can send out written information to everyone just so that they're clear. It basically doesn't say that 4 or 5 of you can't get together and talk to each other. What it does speak to is you can't get together and talk about things specific to the policymaking decisions and topics related to the work of this task force. So if you all are sitting together at a, say you're at a banquet, it doesn't preclude you from sitting together. It doesn't preclude you from talking to each other about any number of topics. But when you get, a majority of the quorum of this body together, you cannot speak outside of a meeting, that we've advertised as an open meeting. And we can make sure that we get everyone specific guidelines about that, because that is important to know.
This is one of the great benefits of having the council participating in our meetings. Thanks, Councilmember Powell. Joe, I think is correct that it would be about 5 people for this body who, couldn't be deliberating in private. They can chat about, things. It's more just that we want the public to be privy to your actual deliberations. So we'll confirm all of that and give it to you in email, but that's our understanding. Okay, so let me ask this. Would it be okay if we tried to have our second meeting of this body actually take place next Thursday, which would then put us on track to do a first and third Thursday for the next bit? So we would start October 7th at 6 p.m. and then we would proceed to October 21st, November 4th, November 18th, December 2nd, December 16th. So the first and third Thursdays. How does that sit with folks? I see nods of the head. I see thumbs up. No one has thrown a tomato. All right. We will, of course, double check with all the relevant logistical folks at the city to make sure that's feasible. But I think we will plan on that. I'm cognizant of the time, so I want to be brief here. But I want to cover 2 things before we finish with you all. So I think the first and third Thursday will keep us away from both Thanksgiving and the day or 2 before Christmas, which will be good. And Veterans Day, which happens to fall on Thursday. One thing that I want to just touch upon that was brought up earlier is the notion of meeting virtually versus face-to-face. And I know that this can be a topic that there is not consensus. I think there are lots of different points of view as it relates to the best way to manage or curb or stop the spread of COVID-19. I think that it would be helpful to us to just hear a little bit from you all. And again, we're trying to wrap you all up by 8 o'clock, so it wouldn't be a long discussion. It could be something that continues offline as well if you want to send us your feedback. But just a couple of comments about how you would like the decision to be made relative to meeting virtually or meeting face-to-face.
This is Shimon.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it should be a consensus. I think it should be something that everybody can be comfortable with. We don't want to force anybody to be in an uncomfortable situation and not be per se at their best. So I think it should be a consensus.
Thanks for that.
I'm a majority rule kind of guy.
We have heard that. Yes, sir. LaJewel, I saw you on mute.
Yeah, I too, consensus. Either way for me.
Larry, are you asking us to vote one way or the other?
I am absolutely not, Denise. No,
Okay.
I am just interested in some feedback. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I sometimes garble. No, I was just interested in getting your input, and I'm getting it in terms of kind of a criteria for deciding whether to meet virtually or in person. Carol and then Walter.
I prefer in-person meetings, to be honest. I enjoy them more, but COVID's got me terrified. I got to be honest. I'm over 70 by a couple of days. And my daughter has, immune system concerns every now and again. So I can do Zoom meetings for a while longer. But if we have to meet in person, I'll just wear masks, lots of them.
Thank you for being so vulnerable with us, Carol. And I'll just say, I know that there will be members of this body who have children who are not eligible yet for the vaccination, who may have to quarantine because of a classmate who gets COVID, or who, are vulnerable themselves and unfortunately get it. We have a family friend whose 4-year-old son has it. So I know that could be a consideration. Walter?
I love the comfort of my home. However, I could do either or, but the Zoom meeting is very, very, very comfortable with me with my schedule. But I love in-person meetings too. However, this is fine with me until maybe we can see what's going on with this variance. And but I will be glad to meet either way.
Thank you very much for that input. Aubrey and then Ishmael.
Yeah, along those lines of, needing to be conscious, and even when we do decide, if we do decide to go back into an in-person format, has there been any conversation about what it would take to offer some kind of a hybrid model so that those who maybe are needing to quarantine would still be able to participate?
Yeah, great question. That's actually something that already kind of exists at the City of Elgin because, as you may have seen during City Council, some members of the council are present in the chamber and some participate remotely. And in fact, we've participated remotely ourselves. So we believe that to be a feasibility without a whole lot of difficulty. Having said that, I think that, that there certainly are reasons to strive for kind of a, not a level playing field, that's not the word I want, but a consistency of access, whatever that might look like. I myself teach at the university, and I'll have some students on Zoom and some in person, and candidly, it's sometimes tricky for me to keep up with the ones that are there remotely. So not to say we shouldn't, but just to share a personal perspective. Well, this input is very much appreciated, and I think that unless there is a strenuous objection, I think that for efficiency's sake, we would probably suggest that next week's meeting be done virtually, given that we don't expect there to be a huge change in the trajectory of the terrible pandemic between now and then. But we will continue to discuss this with you all on an ongoing basis, and please don't hesitate, whether privately over email or in these meetings, to share with us your views on it. We want to be very respectful of what you'd like. The very last thing that I don't think actually will be fully a discussion, but perhaps more of a call to action for you all, is it's really important to us to make sure that you are given all of the kinds of background pieces of information that you feel you need in order to come up with the best possible recommendations. And so that could take the form of data kept by the Elgin Police Department. It could take the form of studies done of policing elsewhere. It could take the form of, archival information about what's happened with the Elgin Police more from a story base, instead of just data. There's all kinds of different things that you all might want to know and understand before you render a judgment about something. And so I had intended to have a more of a discussion tonight about the kinds of pieces of info that you need, but I do think it's a priority to finish on time. And so what I'd like to ask is that you all take some time between now and when we meet again, but preferably sooner than later, so that we might be able to get some of this information to you when we meet next, to give some thought to what kinds of information you'd really like to have to tackle the topics that are within your scope of work. And one way that you can communicate those to us is using policing task force at cityofelgin.org, which I know you've seen in your inboxes already. Policing task force at cityofelgin.org. I also, in that regard, want to take just a moment to read an email that we received from a member of the public who wanted to share this piece of feedback directly with the task force. This is signed Elgin Mom. And it says, I've been a lifelong resident of Elgin. I'm a 45-year-old professional Black woman and mother of 2 teenage boys. I've seen the racial strife that has plagued the city of Elgin. I felt I had to hide my identity here to avoid being retaliated against for discussing this. I was made aware of a recent Facebook post by Sergeant Enrique Santiago where he makes a statement about coming back after several operations on his shoulder. While I commend him for his recovery, I'm deeply disturbed by his follow-up comments about, quote, see how cops should truly be and not this political C word, quiet long enough, close quote. How can one not be disturbed in this climate of police reform and change? Are we to go back to the old times of policing? The city has made great strides to overcome and heal, and I see this as a huge setback. This is the kind of supervisor who is going to lead younger police officers during a time of change. Tell me how the Black and Hispanic community shouldn't be disturbed. I've thought about sending this post to the local papers, but hope that the city can do the right thing here. This is not the type of behavior a leader in the police department should be saying. Sincerely, Elgin Mom. Again, this is an email address available to all, policing task force at cityofelgin.org. So any member of the public who's watching who'd like to share something with the task force can feel free to send to that email. All emails will be shared, unabridged, unedited with the task force. And we will certainly also endeavor to provide other methods for the public to provide input as we go along. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. I would invite anyone who would like to share any kind of takeaway from tonight to maybe do that briefly, something you're taking away from tonight's meeting before we step aside for tonight.
Well, I thank you for that letter that you just read. It shows that we got work to do. And I'm glad that she had the nerves to write that. So I thank you for that, Larry, for reading that. Appreciate it.
Oh, you bet.
Larry, this is Councilwoman Powell. You know, it just speaks to the continued challenges of just the culture of policing, not only in Elgin, but just the culture of policing in America. And it's part of why we're here. It's something that you know, it's going to be tough to tackle, but I'm hopeful, and I think that this group is going to have the ability to make some meaningful change. I would just ask Larry that if you can forward that to everyone on the task force. I definitely want to see it. We do have investigative measures in place we have actually have hired an outside investigation firm to look at concerns and complaints that come into the police department, depending on what the issue is. So this very well is something that, you know, probably we'll need some follow-up on. So thank you to that person who shared their concern.
Chief Lawley, did you want to add?
Yes, if you could forward the email to me, and I will reach out to her. And as Councilwoman Powell said, there are processes in place to look into, you know, what was posted. I didn't see the whole context of what was posted. So if you could forward that to me, and there will be follow-up on the matter. Thank you.
Without a doubt. And again, as I say, I mean, any email sent to the to that address will be shared with all. I just want to take a point of personal privilege and tell you all how appreciative and grateful I am for this meeting. I know it's taken us a bit to get here, or as they say, it's taken us a minute, I think is what the young people say. It's taken us a minute to get to this first meeting. But it is just so meaningful to me personally and professionally, and I know Sarah, Norma, and Joe feel similarly, to be given the opportunity to work with you all on such important work. So I want to thank Council Members Powell and Shaw for entrusting us with that, and the entire task force. Thanks to Chief Lawley for joining us. But most importantly, thank all of you. We will plan to see you next Thursday at 6 o'clock with more details forthcoming via email. But until then, thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.